So what I would love to know is what has your being a writer, how has that informed your governance and your leadership?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think a timely one, because uh, the essence to me of writing is being able to uh, use your imagination to uh, stand in somebody else's shoes and see through their eyes, to engage in this radical act of empathy, um, and shape shifting, where you can say, uh, "All right, I can imagine what it might be like to be, um, you know, a young girl who's enslaved in the antebellum South, or I can imagine myself as a uh, a Elizabethan duke, or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Both as a reader and as a writer, and you know, my politics, I think, has always been premised on this notion that um, that if in fact America is to work, it's going to be because we are unique among great powers in being able to stitch together one people uh, out of all these diverse strands of people who show up from everywhere with different cultures and foods and music, and somehow it works. E pluribus unum, yeah, out of many one.
Mhm.
And and in that sense, that is, to me at least, consistent with a writer's sensibility. Walt Whitman is, to me, describing not just the American countryside. He's describing America's best politics. Abraham Lincoln, when he writes the second inaugural, that is a work of literature, as he's uh, imagining both sides to this great conflict and what it means, um, and ultimately ends with you know with malice towards none and charity towards all. Right. So. Uh, so that, I think, informed everything I did. Now, what's been interesting, and you saw this during my presidency, and you see it in some of the responses to the book, to A Promised Land. Uh, in our current political environment, we have a lot of impatience with that kind of um, uh, being able to see the other side. And I think there have been a couple of reviewers and commentators who say, look at Obama. He's like on one side. On the other hand, he's overthinking things. And the implication, I think, is that if you can see the other side, then somehow you are paralyzed. That the writer's sensibility means that you can't make decisions, that you are stuck because you don't know which way to turn. And part of the irony is that, in fact, for me, it was the opposite, right? And I try to explain this in the book. Maybe some folks are just impatient with it. It's precisely because I could see both sides, or all sides to a problem or an issue, that I would then feel as if I was making a good decision,
Mm.
because I'd seen it from different angles. And uh, this idea that overthinking problems was or is a weakness in politics, I think, is indicative of a culture in which we want to simplify and eliminate all gray areas and just have our way and beat the other team, as opposed to solving problems and figuring out how, in fact, we come together. And I, in part, I suspect, at least on the Democratic side, seeing Donald Trump eliminate all complexity and just do whatever he wants, regardless of the consequences, and demonizing the other side, prompts, I think, sometimes this sense of like, yeah, that's what we should be doing too. We don't need some fancy, overthinking, poetic sensibility. We just need to be, this is what we want, and we're going to go get it. I think that's a mistake, because I think the outcome in terms of policy ends up being really bad. You end up making poor decisions. And I look, I end the book with Bin Laden, the raid into Abbottabad, hugely complex, informed by us looking at a whole bunch of different angles to the problem. A bunch of exhaustive discussions and meetings. But that didn't stop me from then ultimately saying, all right, that's what we're going to do, and it may not work. So I actually think that the writer sensibility is critical and useful, so long as you recognize that once you've seen the complexities of any problem, you still have to make a decision, and then be willing to bear the burden that your decision is not going to be perfect, that there may be some tragic, unintended consequences to a decision, and you have to be comfortable with that as well. So.